Greetings and welcome. This is Sugi Strategy, and thanks for joining me today on my Age of Empires 2 HD, the Forgotten Expansion Pack review. If you're interested in buying the other expansion as well, the African Kingdoms, you can check out a review out of that on my channel as well. Both of these DLCs, however, require the standalone Age of Empires 2 HD to work, so they're not standalone expansion packs, just to make that clear. And the Forgotten is actually very special because it originated as a fan-made mod called the Forgotten Empires, but the development studio Skybox Labs actually released it as a Steam exclusively in 2013. So it didn't have like a full funding as a DLC, so there are some like really key differences between African Kingdoms and the Forgotten expansion packs. One thing that really makes the first thing that I'm going to talk about is the campaigns. And one thing that makes campaigns a lot different from every other campaign on Age of Kings, the Conquerors, and African Kingdoms is the fact that there's no audio dialogue in none of the campaigns in the Forgotten. So I will be going a bit around talking about the campaigns in the Forgotten because I think it's a big part of the game and the expansion. And to my knowledge or to my experience, I think the campaigns, the Forgotten campaigns in terms of hours were the longest out of the ones that I've played. It could be that the African Kingdoms, no, actually I think this is the most longest of hours that I spend into any of the campaigns. So there's currently, well not currently, there's 7 campaigns in the Forgotten. I think in most of the other ones you have 5 and 6. And one of them has 4. So in terms of that, it's already like really big. So the first campaign is called the Alaric. And this is about the Hun invasion, and it's about the King Alaric, who is the king of gods, and about his territories and his homeland while the Roman Empire is on the rise. And I find this campaign ultimately the number one out of all the campaigns in the game. Probably I think this is by far my ultimate favorite. I think there's a lot of difficulty in this one. It's really hard and it has a good story, an interesting story. The second campaign is Sforza. This is based on Italy, about a guy who is a mercenary who hires stuff. I think it was an okay campaign. Then you have Bari, which is also in Italy, which is after the 400 years of collapse of Roman Empire. This is only 3 missions, so it's a bit shorter campaign compared to the rest of the one. This was okay too. Then we have Dracula, and Dracula, to people's knowledge, is nothing to do with vampires. It was a real person that lived, who was actually, I think he and his brother were imprisoned by the Turks, and he spent a lot of time under the Ottoman Empire in Turkey, and then he came to hate Muslims and Islam pretty much, while his brother converted to Islam. It's not, his time on Turkey wasn't really portrayed really well on this particular campaign. I think that was kind of a bit of a poor job, but his story is very fascinating. There's also a few movies about him. I think one came last year, but that's a lot different from, there hasn't been like a real depictions. There's a one in a TV show called The Da Vinci Code. Dracula has like a 1 episode in there, which is like almost the only real portrayal of him aside from this campaign in like popular culture that I've seen. Probably some Romanians have made some, more detailed some movies in Romanian language or something, but I haven't seen them. It was a good campaign. I think some of the maps were kind of meh. You have El Dorado, and this was, to my knowledge, wasn't released on the very first patch to the game, but I didn't find El Dorado. I think this was a pretty horrible campaign. To people's knowledge, El Dorado is pretty much fiction at this point. Well, we don't have the exact proof. And then this is this Indian campaign. Hopefully I don't slay the name of the Indian guys, called Prithvirai. I think that's, I don't know. But this was campaign based on India. Didn't like this too much. And then you have the Battles of the Forgotten, which is essentially 10 different, or was there like 8 or 10 different one standalone missions with somewhere from Luigi the Lionheart, Minamoto no Yorimoto, Sultan Osman Ghazi, Khosrau, and many more. And you had a similar one in, I think, Age of Kings. No, this was in Conquerors. So, as the overall review for the campaigns, I would say it's pretty good. I think the Alarix, Forza, and all pretty much the Italian campaigns were pretty sick. And I had something more of appealing interest to them compared to the African kingdoms. But the African kingdoms had like a really high production value. But as I said, there was no audio. There was a lot of missions where you had a lot of like this dialogue thing going on where the screens kind of halted and freezed, and then you had this text dialogue, and it kind of got boring after a while, and it was like, can we just skip this because it doesn't bring the mood if there's only text, and you don't get too much, because tone and audio gives a lot of character, and you kind of can take the message in a much different way because of that. But I just thought that the campaigns were probably one of the best still. Then there's a lot of balance changes, of course, in the whole Forgotten expansion. There are new civilizations, which I, of course, should talk about. So we have the Magyars, and the Slavs, and these are Eastern European civilizations. The Magyars are from Hungary, and while Slavs are from like Russia, Ukraine, that's Republic, Slovakia, Croatia, Bulgaria, Macedonia, Yugoslav, all those. And then you have Italians, Incans, and Indians. I think the Italians are probably the most interesting out of the new civilization. I think they're very cool. They have the Condottieri. Genoa is the crossbowmen. The Incas have the Kamiaks and the slingers. The Indians have the elephant archers and imperial camels. The Magyars have the Magyar hussars. And the Slavs have the boyar. And then you, of course, have some like scenario editor units coming in, like legendary heavy swordsman, centurion, Nordic swordsman, flamethrower, and siege tower, for instance. And there's new animals coming in, such as the bear, the cow, the camel, wild camel, dolphins, donkeys, llamas, and penguins. And I heard there was like tigers and dragons, but they were removed from some type of copyright issues, to my knowledge. And there's not that much of like new technologies and like never mind that. I think there's actually sorry about that. There's actually quite many new technologies added to the game, and new random maps and other features. The AI is also like changed. Some people were actually criticizing the AI being a bit bad, or being dumbed down, and well, that's their criticism. But I thought it was significant difficulty in some of these campaigns due to even just playing on normal mode. But just to really wrap it up, not to talk about million minutes, I think the Forgotten is a pretty good estimation, like a equal amount. So it's like it's like $10 or something like in Steam, and you get like probably 40 hours out of the campaigns alone. So I think it's a pretty good deal in terms of hours and the money you get. And the new civilizations are pretty good, and the new units and enchant AI, and higher population limit actually, which is pretty big. And there was also some like FPS changes to single player, and like screen resolutions also added on this Forgotten. But I think these are included in the normal HD because I think they use the same patch. Correct me if I'm wrong. But the Forgotten is a pretty good expansion. And if somebody would come to me with a question, should I buy the Forgotten or the African Kingdoms if you were to choose one of them? In terms of campaigns, the Forgotten is better. But in terms of the units and the DLC and the technologies and the units and all of that, I think African Kingdoms was a bit better expansion pack. And thanks for watching. I will be doing a full game review out of Age of Empires 2 sooner or later, where I will be talking about more of the game mechanics, but I wanted to go not so much in detail because this is just an expansion pack. But thanks for watching. I will see you guys later. Hopefully you subscribe and give it a like and comment and thumbs up, and we will see you next time. Cheers.